Yeah. In this session, I would like to look out for the various aspects relating to evaluating a project, right? We will see what are the various techniques that are available to evaluate any project. So when I say evaluating any project, based on the expected future cash flows, expected future benefits the project is going to generate, we are trying to find out whether that project investment, whether the investment in the project is going to be a successful investment or it is not. There are various tools and techniques that help us in terms of evaluating a project. So on those lines, I would like to initially cover the basic conceptual aspects regarding those, followed by we'll take up a few numericals which can help us in doing a proper evaluation of a project. So from that dimension, the few things that we are looking at, the important techniques, the important techniques that help us in evaluating a project. One we call as NPV in short, but otherwise called as net present value. This is a very powerful tool for evaluating a capital project. Then apart from that, we also have another tool which is called as IRR, otherwise called as internal rate of return. We'll also talk about a discounted payback period, DPP, another powerful tool to evaluate a project, a discounted payback. And one more important tool to look at for evaluating any project is the accumulated profit. So these are some of the four tools generally that are heavily used, though there are few other tools which can help in evaluating capital projects. We can look at these four as the most powerful tools to evaluate the same. Of course, some of them have overlapping objectives, whereas some of them are exclusively for some purposes. For example, when I look at accumulated profit, as the word itself is telling us, it is accumulative of the profit towards the end of the project. I'm not looking at on the day of start of the project. So probably if I'm talking about a 20-year project, I'm primarily looking at after all expenses going up, what is the cumulative profit? What is the accumulated profit that comes at the end of the project? So it's as good as talking about the future values of all the incomes minus the future values of all the expenses gives me the total accumulated profit on the day of completion of the project. So that is one thing which we can look at. So if that accumulated profit is large positive, then probably the project is more and more attractive compared to the other one. But the same logic when we are applying to the present value instead of the accumulated value, if I am applying, I find out the present value of all incomes which are coming up at different points, all cash inflows, and I subtract the present value of all cash outflows or expenses, is what will give me the net present value of the project. And as an investment decision, if it is more positive, good to invest. If it is negative, then it's not a good project to invest. It's not feasible kind of a project. Then, yeah, okay, here this is going with, when I say present value, we are discounting we are discounting the cash flows of each of the different time periods at a particular rate, which we call as the rate of discount. Now, this discount rate is the typical expected return, right? Anyone who wants to invest in the project, what is the expected return which he is expecting on the investment per year? So that is what we call as a discount rate. So based on that particular discount rate, if I am finding out the value of the incomes versus outgoes, the incomes are greater than the outgoes, then it is a profitable project, otherwise it is not. Then the same logic extended a little bit more, saying if the discount rate is some X, now probably it may so happen that present value of cash inflows is greater than present value of cash outflows. But it may so happen probably at 12% or some other discount rate, the present value of cash inflows is same as present value of cash outflows. So that particular rate of discount, that particular interest rate where the present value of the cash inflows equals the present value of the cash outflows is what we call as the internal rate of return, or in other way it is talking about that particular effective annual rate of return, where the present value of cash inflows is same as the present value of cash outflows, or in a way where NPV, the net present value, is becoming zero. So if as an investment decision, if that IRR is greater than the expected return, then it is good to invest in that project, otherwise it is not. Then getting into this discounted payback period, it measures in a slightly different way. It measures the effectiveness of the project in years or periods. Discounted payback period. All it is saying is, what is the earliest time? What is the earliest time where for a particular project the present value of cash inflows started going above the present value of cash outflows? Means the project just starts making profit. What is the minimum time frame? What is the earliest time frame where the project starts making profit and it accumulates the profits as the time increases? So because in many of the projects there is a huge cash inflow in the initial years, so there will be some time that it would take to recover those cash outflows, and after that it will start making a profit. So that's where we say the earliest time after the start of the project where the present value of the cash inflows will exceed the present value of the cash outflows. So those are the different mechanisms that are available with respect to the evaluation of any project. And of course there are a few numericals which we would look out for regarding the evaluation of the project. We talk about the different ways in which for different kinds of scenarios where we compute the net present value. There are different scenarios where we are computing the discounted payback periods, and even computing the accumulated profits also. So with those numericals, I hope we will get a kind of a clarity in terms of using the project appraisal techniques to really evaluate the worth of the project and take the decisions with respect to invest or non-invest in the project. So we'll move towards the usage of the various numericals. We'll take up a few numerical examples, and based on that try calculating these various features and try to take decisions for the project. All right. Now let's look at computing the net present value as well as the discounted payback period for a project when there are some kind of complexities involved. Some of those complexities being the costs. There are some kind of recurring costs the over the length of the project, right? We have seen earlier in very basic NPV kind of projects, we see that there is one cash outflow at the beginning of the project and there are only cash inflows after that. Whereas this is the scenario which we are talking of, some kind of costs in following some kind of pattern across the length of the project, and at the same time the cash inflows that are coming out of the project, even they are changing over a period. So if those are the kind of variations that are there in with respect to inflows as well as outflows, it's just not a traditional project where there is one cash outflow at the beginning and after that there are a series of cash inflows. Here we have regular cash inflows and regular cash outflows happening at different points in time. In those cases, what is the way I can look out for computation of NPV as well as the discounted payback period for that? So on those lines, if I look at a company ABC is considering investment in a project. The cost of the project is 10 crores at the beginning of the first year, right? Okay, 10 crores is the initial investment. There are further costs at the beginning of second to 15th year. Second to 15th years also there are costs. Costs at the beginning of the second year will be 1.5 crore. At the beginning of the second means at the end of the first. We have to be careful on this. So end of first to end of 14th. Okay. The cost at the beginning of the second year will be 1.5 crore and will increase every year thereafter at the rate of 5%. So 1.5, then probably the next period it will be 1.5 into 1.05 and so on. So these are about the cash outflows. The income will be 3.5 crores at the end of each of the first 5 years and then increase by 50 lakhs at the end of each of the 6th to 15th year. So the company sets a discount rate of 15% per annum. Alright, so first if I try to put it out in a spreadsheet, right, probably the years 0, 1, 2, I go up to the 14th year, right, because when we are talking about at the end of each of the first 5 years. So even in the 15th year also, if I look at, okay, so here I'll talk about the costs and here I'll talk about the income. Right now the cost is 10 lakhs or how much? 10 crores. Right now the cost is 10 crores. This is the cost, and at the end of each of the year, the cost at the beginning of the second year to beginning of the 15th year. So which is at the end of the first year, there is 1.5 crore. Probably it's better that we operate in crores directly. So 1.5 crores is the cost here. So like that, the cost at the beginning of the second year is 1.5 and it will go until the beginning of the 15th, means until the end of the 14th year. So this will get increased by 5% every year. So the cost until this period, these are the various costs that are incurred in each of the periods. Then income wise, we are talking about 3.5 crore at the end of each of the 5 years. So there is a 3.5 crore at the end of each of the 5 years, and that increases by 50 lakhs at the end of each of the 6th to 15. So 3.5 will increase by zero point 0.5 crore at the end of each up till the end of the 15th year. So these are the cash inflows. So the net cash flows, if I am looking at, it is the income minus the cost. So the net cash flows over each of the years is going to be this much, and at the rate of 15%, I can find out the NPV. NPV at the rate of 15%, I should be able to find out this. So the NPV is almost 15.13 crores. The cash outflow is only 10. So overall NPV, the net cash inflows is 15.13. The net cash outflow at the beginning is 10. So my total NPV for the project is only around 5, is positive 5.1 crore, which means this project is a profitable one. So the same logic, if I have to bring it through a manual calculation, how do I try looking at it? There is, if I have to look out for cash outflows, total cash outflows I can talk about. What are the total cash outflows? Initially there is 10, or probably I can call it as total present value of all cash outflows. Initially there is 10, but the ones that are coming at the end of 1 year, 1.5, so I'll discount it to the present value V. Then in the next year it is 1.5, 1.5, it is increasing by 0.05 and V square. Like that, I'm going to get something 1.5, 1.05 to the power 13, V power 14. So this is what are my total cash outflows and the present value of those cash outflows. So I can do the summation. So taking out this 10, otherwise this is a geometric progression. So I can find out the sum of the 14 terms of this geometric progression, which will give me A, which is the first term, into 1 minus R power n. What is R here? R comes out to be 1.05 V. 1.05 V is going to be the R. So R power 14 divided by 1 minus R, 1.05 V. Now we know that I is 15%, right? So let me set that I is 15%. From here I get my V as 1 divided by 1 plus I. So my V is this much. So and 1.05 V also I'll try to find out because it is required. So I'll take it as 1.05 times V, taking it to this number. So I will find out PV of cash outflows, right? The PV of cash outflows will become a small calculation, 1.5 times V times 1 minus 1.05 V to the power 14. 1 minus 1.05 V is this much. This to the power 14 divided by 1 minus 1.05 V. This gives me that the present value of the cash outflows is 10.8. To this, the first year's cash outflow of 10 I am adding. So overall, the present value of the total cash outflows is going to be somewhere around 20.8. Correct? The present value of the total cash outflows is coming out to 20.8 crores. Now the same logic I can apply for my inflows. So how do I look at the inflows? The first 5 years, it is 3.5 crore only. So it can be written as 3.5 V, 3.5 V squared, 3.5 V cube, probably up to 3.5 V per 5. But after that it is 3.5 plus 0.5 V power 6, 3.5 plus 2 into 0.5 V power 7. So it can be written something like this: 3.5 plus 10 into 0.5 V power 15. So these are the cash flows. So for the first 5 years, I can write it as 3.5 A5. The first 5 years, I will write it as 3.585. Then here, 3.5 V per 6, or probably I can do it for the first 15 years, there is a 3.5. So I'll write 3.5 A15, and after this I have something like 0.5 V per 6 plus 2 into 0.5 V per 7 plus so on, 10 into 0.5 V per 15. So from this, if I take out V per 5 out, it is like, or probably 0.5 V per 5 out. All I am getting is V plus 2V squared plus so on 10V per 10. So this part is nothing but IA10. So I'll take it as 3.5 A15 plus 0.5 V per 5 IA10. This will give me the necessary values for the cash inflows. So from here I will find out the value of A15 at the rate of 15%. At the rate of 15% interest rate, I can try finding out my A15. A15 will operate to 5.8474. 5.8474 is the value of A15, and even I should take IA10 also. Right, I will take IA10 here. What is IA10 for the same 15% interest? IA10 comes out to 21.9982, and we already know the value of V, so we should be able to find out the PV of cash inflows. The PV of cash inflows comes out as 3.5 times A15. This is A15 plus 0.5 times V power 5 times IA10. So my present value of the cash inflows comes out to 25.93 crores. So the total present value, net present value, is nothing but present value of cash inflows minus the present value of cash outflows, resulting in that same 5.13 crore. So now that the total net present value is positive, this project is a profitable investment altogether. So in a step-by-step mechanism also, we can evaluate the present value, net present value of the project using this mechanism. And now the other thing that we are supposed to find out in this exercise is the discounted payback period. As we know by the definition of the discounted payback period, it is the earliest time where the present value of the cash inflows exceed or be equal to the present value of cash outflows. So at least it has to be equal, but it has to exceed. So that is the point. The earliest, it may happen many times, but the earliest where the present value of the cash inflows is greater than that of the outflows is what is the discounted payback period. That particular time period where the present value of the cash inflows exceeds that of the outflows for the first time. So that is what will give the discounted payback period for the project. So how do I look at that? Right? The same logic. So the simple way to find that out is first check out year on year. Let's say it's as good as finding out the NPV for each of the payment times, and wherever the earliest the NPV is coming out positive. So in this case, okay, if I want to find out the NPV, right, the total present value, if I want to find out PV or NPV at each year, if I want, it is nothing but here I will try the NPV formula at the rate of 15%, wherein my cash flows are from here to here, right, wherein my cash flows are from here to here, and to that I add up my total cash outflow. So what we could see is, okay, for the first year the NPV is still negative. There is a negative 8.2 crores that is lying as the NPV, but when I drag it off, I see that in the 10th year is the first time the NPV is turning to be positive. Right, after 9 years of payment in the 10th year, at the end of the 10th year is when I see that the NPV is turning positive. So my discounted payback period in this case operates out to be 10 years. But how do I compute it? Not through a spreadsheet, but if I'm going with a typical manual mechanism, all again probably the same logic which we have used earlier for finding NPV. You can make one broad assumption. Okay, I'm starting with on a broader scale. Look at your costs, 10 and 1.5, 11.5. At what point probably your income starts exceeding the cost, even without doing any kind of discountings, without using any kind of discounting, we can look at cumulative, like, okay, on the cost front in each of the periods, these are the costs. So from the next year onwards, I will add the previous period costs like this. So on a broader scale, if I look at, I keep adding the costs. Similarly, I keep adding the income. And what we could see is at least until this year, probably this is the year when my income started exceeding the cost. So what we should start looking out for is from this period onwards, we can quickly try computing the NPVs for each of the periods, and for whichever period the NPV turns positive, first time the NPV turns positive, that is what we can consider as the discounted payback period. There is no other alternative. I have to try out for my inflows as well as outflows at the end of each of the 6th, 7th, 8th years, and wherever I am seeing that the NPV is turning positive, that is what I can use as my discounted payback period. That's the first time where my overall NPV of the project is turning out to be positive. So that is how we can get into the computation of the discounted payback period. All right. There could be a lot of complexities associated with the project, and when there are some kind of complexities in the project, how well we can compute the net present value, commenting about the profitability of the project, also the discounted payback period, which helps in finding out how many years it takes for the project to break even for the first time after the proper discounting is also considered. Alright. Now let's look at a small numerical which can help us in computing the NPV as well as the discounted payback period for a project, right? So just look at it. We have already we know that NPV is nothing but the present value of all the future cash flows. So we find the present value of all cash inflows, and also we find the present value of all cash outflows. Subtract the two to get the net present value. So different timings, different cash flows. So find out the present value of them and arrive at the net. And when it comes to discounted payback period, we wanted to know, once I find out the present value of all the cash outflows, after how many inflows, what is the minimum inflows time period that is required where the project gets completely break even, and after that it's only the accumulated profits. So that is the time period that I would like to understand at this particular point. When is that the present value of the outflows becomes equal to the present value of the inflows, and post that the whatever the present values that come up, they are the excess of inflows over the outflows. That is what we call as the payback period. And how do I look at those things practically using a numerical is what we are going to try out here. Let's see this. A company is undertaking a new project. Project requires an initial investment of 32.35 lakhs. So there is a cash outflow of 32.35 lakhs right now at time period 0, followed by 26.85 lakhs. Another 26.85 lakhs is the investment probably 4 months later. So when I look at it in terms of years, 1/3 of the year later, I have this kind of cash outflows. Okay. It is expected that the investment will provide income over an 18-year period. Okay. Starting from the beginning of the third year. Beginning of the third year is nothing but the end of the second year. So probably to maintain consistency, we can take the beginning of the third year as the second year ending, because all these are expressed at the end of the period. So okay, at the end of the second, at the end of the third, and like that probably up to the end of 19th year, which are a total of 18 years. So over a period of 18 years is something I am getting at the end of second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and up to the 19th period. The net income from the project will be received continuously. So at the rate of 12.82 per annum. So probably it's like within the third year, at the end of the second to at the end of the third, I'm going to get 12.82 lakhs per annum for a period of 18 years. Every year 12.82 but on a continuous basis. Okay. At the end of the 18-year period, there will be no more further income from the investment. Calculate the effective rate of interest. At this effective rate of interest, find the NPV as well as the discounted payback. Now, if I have to write these things in the notation form, right, the V notation, because I want to find the present values for each one of them. So alright, the first cash outflow, because it is made at this point itself, I can write it as minus 32.35. Whereas the second one, I will write it as minus 26.85 V power 1 by 3. Right? Minus 26.85 V power 1 by 3. But of course, this is the important one. This is the cash inflow. So I'll make it 12.82 per annum. And that too because it's on a continuous basis and it's an annuity. I'll take the present value of this continuous annuity. So I'll write A bar for a period of 18 years. And this is after 2 years, right from the third year onwards. So directly I can take V squared, because if I want to find out the present value of it, from here, A bar is from this perspective. A bar V squared is from this perspective. So I'll take it as A bar V squared into 12.82. And of course, this V squared I would be taking at the rate of 14.5%. But what is important is having a 14.5% as a part of my tables is going to be difficult. So that's where probably we can change. If it is through a spreadsheet, doing it may not be a difficulty. But if it is through a table, we have to check out whether this 14.5% is available as a part of our tables or not. Since this is not available as a part of the tables, we can even consider the scenario of 15% per annum. But if at all we are doing it through a spreadsheet, we can very well incorporate any of them, because at the end of the thing, A bar 18 is nothing but I by delta times A18, right? I by delta times A18, and I know that it is 15%, and delta I can take it as log 1 plus I, and A18 we have the formula, the present value of a regular annuity. We can find out the present value of the regular annuity using a formula, and based on that we can do the calculation, right? So probably even if it is 14.5%, let's try out I by delta into A18 at the rate of 14.5% itself. Let's not change it to 15. If I change it to 15, I can use the A18 directly from the 15% actuarial tables. But because I have 14.5%, I may not be able to use those tables. I may have to do that process manually. Okay, let's try that out. So this is the notation form. In the notation form, it is coming out as minus 32.35 minus 26.85 V power 1 by 3 plus 12.82 A bar 18, but this is after 2 years, so I am directly taking V squared, and all of them are at 14.5%. So we can compute each of these aspects. Right, first I will find out, I'll take all these things into a spreadsheet first of all. So at time 0, I have minus 32.35 at time 1 by 3. Alright. At times 0.33 years. I'll take the okay, at times 0.33, at times 0.33, my outflow is 26.85 lakhs. So which means if I look at the present values, this is straightforward, I don't need to discount it, whereas this is V power 1 by 3. So V power 1 by 3 is nothing but 1 by I to the power 1 by 3. So 1 plus I, 1 by 1 plus I to the power 1 by 3. I is 14.5%. 1 by 1 plus I to the power 1 by 3. Okay. So this is coming out to minus 25.665. Then we have right from the third year onwards 12.82 A bar V squared, at least 12.82, right, from 3 to 19 years, we can take it as 12.82 every year V squared, right, 12.82 V squared, and after that I multiply this with A bar 18. We'll try to see how we get the A bar 18, but 12.82 V squared, 12.82 divided by 1 plus 14.5% squared. So this is around 9.71 directly, and this 9.71 I have to multiply with A bar 18, right, A bar 18. How do I get this A bar 18? For if it had been a 15% interest rate, I could have directly substituted the A bar 18. I by delta 1 is, that's one more thing which I can take, because A bar 18, it is nothing but I by delta times A 18. So just using this equation, using this notation, I in this case is 0.145, delta is log 1 plus I, log 1.145. So this is what will give me the I by delta. So I by delta, first of all, I by delta is getting up 0.145 divided by log 1 plus 14.5%. So this is giving me somewhere around 1.07. That is my I by delta. And A15, if I am going with 15%, probably I can take A18 corresponding to that 15% from the table directly, right? So how do I get the present value of this 14.5? If you remember, the present value of the annuity is nothing but, see, for a regular annuity, it is V plus V squared plus V cube plus so on up to V power n. So probably it is getting expressed as, if you see the present value of an annuity, it is, these are the various $1 payments at different points in time. The present values of them is V plus V squared plus so on. This is looking like a geometric progression. So V into 1 minus the R power n, the common ratio V power n divided by 1 minus R, 1 minus V. So V into 1 minus V power n by 1 minus V. If I do this, this is what is nothing but my AN formula. Right? V into A into 1 minus R power n by 1 minus R. So V into 1 minus V power n by 1 minus V is what is the value of my AN. So V, if I try to find out, first of all, in this case it is 1 by I, 1 plus I. So 1 plus 14.5%, that is what is my V. So based on this I can find out A 14.5. Directly I can find out A 14.5. Sorry, A 18. This is what is my cash flows. I am going to get cash flows over a 18-year period. So I can find out A18. First of all, V, okay, multiplied by 1 minus V power n. 1 minus V power 18 divided by 1 minus V. 1 minus V. This is giving me that the A18 is around 6.29. Just to verify, corresponding to 15%, your A18 was 6.128. So this should be slightly higher itself, giving me 6.29, which is working out pretty fine. So my A18 is 6.2938. So what I can very well do now is, this A18 I will take it as 6.2938. So now I have all my cash flows in place, right? So from 3 to 18, 12.82 into V square multiplied by A multiplied by A bar 18 V squared, right? So A bar 18 is I by delta A18. So I by delta has come out to 1.07 into A18. So at least the present value of all the cash inflows, I will get it as 9.77 into A18 into I by delta. So this is what is coming out to be my present value of the cash inflows, which is working out to around 65. And what about my outflows? The present value of my outflows is somewhere around 58. So based on this, the NPV is basically the present value of all my cash outflows and the excess of inflows over the outflows. So it is giving me 7.83 lakhs, and since it is positive, I say that this particular project is profitable. That is the way I can find out the NPV of the project. Of course, here if the interest rate had been 15%, which is rounded up and for which I can find the value in the tables, no problem, I can directly use the table value and solve it. But in case I don't get it, then probably finding out AN is nothing but, if I understand the first principles of how do I get the AN, it is nothing but it's a regular annuity. So the present value of the regular annuity works out with V squared, V cubed, so on. So then you can use the geometric progression to find out the present value of the same using this formula. Then on the same, how do I find out the discounted payback? Okay, the total number of years is what I am looking at. So this project overall is a 20-year project, right? Over the first 2 years nothing, and from the third year onwards till the 20th year, there are a continuous stream of cash flows that are coming in. So whenever I have to talk about a discounted payback, I find it out right from the beginning of the project. Though my cash inflows are starting from the beginning of the third, My discounted payback is computed in terms of the first 2 years also. So I will always take it as T plus 2 years. At least for this example, because the first 2 years there is no scope of a revenue getting generated. But the way I have to look out for is at what point in time, okay, 12.82 at every period for whatever n, instead of directly taking 18 now, for whatever n at 14.5%, 12.82 a bar v squared, at what point is it equivalent to 32.35 as well as 26.85 v power 1 by 3. So what is this particular value of n where that equality is coming out? So for that again I can do the same 12.82 I by delta v squared, this entire thing we know, and then an is equal to this part. So this part is already computed, which comes out to 58.015. Right, this I don't need to again recompute. This entire thing is equal to 58.015. And probably this part is also computed, 12.82 into I by delta into v squared. 12.82 into v squared is this much, I by delta is this much. So probably I can find out 12.82 v squared into I by delta is giving me around 10.4716. So directly it is giving me an is equal to 58.15 divided by 10.4716. So the same thing if I put here an equal to these two things. I'll do the summation of these two, which is giving me some 58.05. This number is divided by 10.47. So an is working out to this much. Now we know an is nothing but v into 1 minus v power n by 1 minus v. So at least this is equal to 5.54. Now from here I can simplify. Right, 5.1 minus v power n equal to 5.54 into 1 minus v by v, and probably v per n is 1 minus 5.54 into 1 minus v by v is what is the v power n. So v also we know. So n goes as log of this to the base v. That's how we can simplify it. So let's complete this part. So when I want v power n, from this formula I want v power n 1 minus 5.54, which is this number, times 1 minus v. 1 minus, I need 1 minus v, this is the v, 5.54 times 1 minus v divided by v. So 1 minus, you don't need this, so probably let me not put the bracket here. 1 minus 5.54 into 1 minus v by v is giving me Vn is around v power n is 0.19. So n will come out as log. So in this case n will be coming out as log this entire part to the base v, which is also written as log this entire part divided by log v. So going with that, we can get the n, where I can take log of this entire log of this entire calculation divided by log v. This is giving me that n is around 12.01 years. So from here I can go with 12.01 years from the beginning of the third year onwards. So because the first 2 years there is no cash flows, the overall discounted payback period in this case is around 14 years. 14.01 years is the discounted payback. So in this numerical, there should be a comfort level that should come, especially when I am using an n, which is when I am using an interest rate which is not present as a part of the actuarial tables, deriving the value from the basics, from the first principles, and then trying to use the various mechanisms to find out your NPV as well as the discounted payback period. Right? All right. Yeah. Now let's look at an example to compute the discounted payback period, especially when you have multiple cash flows, right? Some of the things I'm more interested in looking at through this caselet. Multiple cash flows, both inflows as well as outflows, as well as a scenario wherein we have continuous cash flows, not at a discrete intervals of time, not at the end of 6 months, or not at the end of 1 year or a beginning of 2 years, not at a specific point in time, but we are treating it continuous over a period. Especially when we have such kind of scenarios, how do I go ahead computing the discounted payback period? Now for that, let's try to understand this numerical, right? And before we go ahead into it, we know the discounted payback period is nothing but that particular period after I discount it with the required rate of return, after I discount all the cash flows with their required rate of return, what is the earliest time frame when my inflows, present value of the cash inflows, the earliest time period where the present value of the cash inflows is greater than the present value of the cash outflows, because in general we do invest in a project in the beginning few years, and the project start generating some cash flows over the period. So what I want to know is, after applying an appropriate discounting rate for all the future cash flows, what is the earliest time frame wherein my cash inflows start turning positive or start turning greater than the present value of the cash outflows? That is what we are trying to accomplish as the discounted payback period. So just try to understand this numerical now. The computer manufacturer is developing a new chip, so to be produced from 1st Jan 2008 to 31st December 2020. That's the time period in which it wants to be sold. Development begins on 1st Jan 2006, which means 2 years. So 2006 is the development period for the chip. From 2008 it will be the production part. So the development cost is 9 million on 1st Jan 2006 and 12 million payable continuously in 2007. So there are two costs. One is 9 million outright at the beginning and 12 million continuously over the entire 2007. How do I represent it, all my outflows? The first one is straightforward. As on 2006, if I want to find out on 2006 1st Jan itself is my cash outflow. So probably I should look at the liabilities or cash outflows. From a company's standpoint, there are two outflows. One is 9 million on 1st Jan 2006 and the other is 12 million over the period of 2007. That is what we mean by continuously. So we have to actually bring out how do I put it into a notation. Okay, during 2007. So if I want as of 2006, I will discount it by 1 year. So I am taking it as V. V, as we know, it is nothing but 1 by 1 plus I, which is a discounting factor for one period. Then, because we are talking about continuously over one period, the present value of that continuous payment for the entire one period can be represented as A, the present value of rupees 1 continuously during a period for one period, for 1 year. So this is what is the present value of the 12 plus 9. This is what is the present value of the 9. So the present value of the total cash outflows is going to be 9 plus 12V into A bar 1. And this has to be discounted at 9%. And as we also know, the formula for A bar 1, which is nothing but I by delta times the V. This I can very well write it as I by delta times V, which means it entirely becomes 9 plus 12V square I by delta. And delta is nothing but, just to recollect you on the formula, delta is nothing but log 1 plus I. Right? So just to find out, we know that I, right, let me just put it, I is 0.09 or 9%, so which makes 1 plus I, or probably let me call it as V, which is equal to 1 by 1 plus I, which becomes 1 by 1 plus I. This is what is the value of V. And the delta, right, let me just write it as delta, which is nothing but log 1 plus I, which will give me 0.08. So I by delta, I'll find out I by delta, which will come out as this divided by this. This is what is my I by delta. So I can very well find out the present value of all cash outflows. Present value of all cash outflows is nothing but 9 plus 12 V squared. So this number squared into I by delta. which is giving me that the present value of all the cash outflows is 19.54. Basically, though 9 has been spent in the first year and 12 has been spent over the entire second year, though in literal sense it is 21, but applying all of them to the present value as on 1st Jan 2006, this is working out that the value of all the cash outflows is equal to 19.54. Same logic I should use to go for inflows. Now what is the inflow part? From 1st Jan 2008, the chip will be ready for production and it is assumed that the income will be received half yearly in arrears at the rate of 5 million per annum. So we will be receiving 5 million per annum every year. 5 million per annum is what we receive, and which means 2.5 is received at the end of every semi-year. So what do I look at? How do I find out what is the present value of that amount? This effective rate of interest is 9% per annum. But we are talking about a semi-annual. So how do I find out the semi-annual nominal rate of interest? This is what I have to take, because the effective rate of interest I is 9%. But because of the semi-annual compounding, I actually require I2, which is a semi-annually compounded nominal rate of interest. So how do I get that? This is nothing but 2 into 1 plus I to the power half minus 1. Right? I am going with the formula I m, which is mthly compounding. It is nothing but m into 1 plus I to the power 1 by m minus 1. Going with that formula, I can find out what is I2. Right, so I'll take the value of I2, which is coming out as 2 into 1 plus I to the power 1 by 2 minus 1. This I do it as minus 1. So I2 comes out to 8.88%, 8.81%. That is what is I2. So either I take 2.5 and then proceed, or now what I'm getting is the 5 at every year. So to adjust, so all we are getting is 5 is coming at the end of the year, but 2.5 at the end of every 6 months. So basically, okay, 5 is coming every year from 2008 onwards. So 2008, end of 2008, I am receiving a 5. End of 2009, I am receiving another 5, and so on. This is how I am getting all the 5s. So the present value of all these 5s, if I am getting the entire 5 at the end of the year after for k years, then the present value of this 5 is 5 AK. But I am getting it on a semi-annual basis, so this would be adjusted by I by I2, because if I get it on an annual basis, then I can directly write 5 AK. If I get it on a continuous basis, in the cash outflows, we have written it as I by delta. So if I am getting it on a semi-annual basis, I am writing it as I by I2. So this would be the present value of all the fives that I am getting every year over a k year period on a semi-annual basis. Now, the present value, this is as of 2008, but I want to take it as of 2006, means I am discounting it by 2 more years at the rate of 9%. So, I'll take it as V squared as a part of my notation. So, this would be the present value of all the cash inflows. Depending on what is the value of K, we can either take it from our actuarial tables, the different values of K, or we can even find out using the formulas of Excel. So basically we can simplify this saying 5 into I by I2 into V squared is AK. So let's simplify this part at least. So this is coming out as 5 into V squared. This is V because I am getting it after 2 years. I am taking it as V squared into I by I2. This is what. So this is equivalent to 4.3 K, AK. So this I can write it as 4.301 AK. This is what is the present value of all the cash inflows that I am getting within a K year period. So depending on what is the value of K, so probably what I'll do, if K equal to 1 or right from K equal to 0.5 or probably K equal to 1, we can proceed. K equal to 0.5 or K equal to 1, right, something like this if I am trying out. Because AK, if I am looking out for actuarial tables, I would be getting only for this integer values. So probably I'll take it as A1 because we should be able to do it either using actuarial tables or from this. So A1 is nothing but I can use the PV formula at the rate of 9% and NPR being 1, PMT being 1, that is what is AK all about, minus. So this is what is AK all about. So this is working out to 0.92 at the end of 1 year and just making a correction. So AK becomes 0.92 and probably at the end of 6 years AK is becoming 0.49 and probably multiply these AKs with 4.301. So the present value of the cash inflows, the present value of the cash inflows is 3.95 at the end of 1 year and almost 19.29 at the end of 6 years. If I do for 7 years, it's becoming almost 21.65. So this is where it is crossing the present value of the cash outflows. So in the seventh year after the cash inflows have started, the break even has actually occurred, or the present value of the cash inflows have crossed the cash outflows. If required, I can even check it with 6.5. Even by that time, the cash inflows have crossed the cash outflows. So probably because after 6, the next cash flow comes out at 6.5 years. I can very well say that 6.5 years after the cash flows have started is what is the break even, which means right from the beginning, if I am looking at 6.5 plus 2, 8.5 years becomes the discounted payback period. For this example, the discounted payback period works out to 8.5 years. So just to summarize, I'm trying to find out all the cash outflows, the present values. The first cash outflow was straightforward, whereas the second one is a continuous payment. So the present value of any continuous payment 12 A bar, and for how many years? Only 1 year. So I'll take it as 12 A bar 1, right? This is my cash, but this would have been, if I'm considering it on a continuous basis, this A bar 1 is nothing but I by delta into V, and because this is for 2007 and I need to find out the present value as of 2006, I'm discounting it again by another V, bringing it to this value. So this is giving me the total present value of all the cash outflows. In inflows, we are getting 5 every year at the end of the year. So the present value as of the beginning of that year is 5 AK. And this would have been the case if the compounding is annual, but the compounding is semi-annual. So I am adjusting this 5 AK, multiplying it with I by I2. So this is the present value at the beginning of the period, but I require the present value 2 years before, as on 1st Jan 2006. So brought in another multiplication factor of V square, working out to this. And I am finding out that particular value of AK. You can check out for AK under the actuarial tables also. I am finding out that particular value of AK, that initial value of AK, wherein when I multiply it with 4.301, where is the present value of the assets crossing the present value of the liabilities? That period, along with the initial gestation period, is initial period where no cash inflows have generated, that are right from the beginning of the project, is what is contributing to the discounted payback period. And just as a quick note to look at, if the let's say if the interest rate is increased, let's say instead of 9%, if the interest rate becomes 10%, what could happen if the interest rate received is 10%? Probably the cash flows that we are getting, that we are getting from the assets, their present value keeps dropping drastically. So the cash inflows will get decreased drastically, because they are getting discounted by 10% or 11%, whereas the cash outflows, because most of them occur in the earlier stages, though they are discounted by 10% or 11%, their change is not that drastic. So as the required rate of return increases, the number of periods that you take for the present value of the assets to exceed the present value of the liabilities will actually increase. Probably that is one relationship. As effective rate increases, the discounts of the later periods, which is mostly the inflows. So PV of inflows falls drastically compared to outflows. So generally it takes a lot of time for the inflows to exceed the outflows. So the discounted payback period generally increases in that case, especially if the required rate of return increases and vice versa. Right? This gives you a clarity on how do I combine the multiple streams of cash flows having multiple behaviors, some continuous, some discrete, some in the beginning of the period, some at the end of the period. All these things in the computation of your discounted payback period. Is this fine? All right. Now let's look at how do we compute the net present value associated with the equity investment. Means I have purchased some shares, right? I have purchased some shares, and those shares keep paying some dividend, or I am expecting that their dividend paying pattern is in some way. And as we understand, shares do not have any maturity period, so they are treated as investments until perpetuity. So even the dividends, I expect them that they would be paid forever. Okay. So if I invest in some shares and I am expecting that the dividends are going to be something like this, based on this, what should be the appropriate price of investment? Or if I have invested some X, what is the overall return that I am expecting on this investment? And if my expectations are some X percent, then am I really profitable on this investment or at a loss? NPV is something, the net present value, which is an adjustment, which looks at cash inflows as well as outflows, and finds the net of them. If the net of that is positive, then the investment is profitable based on our expectations. Whereas if the NPV comes out to be negative, the investment is a loss-making kind of an investment. So let's look at some of the things that are there in this numerical. A company issues ordinary shares to an investor who is subjected to the income tax at 16.6%. So the income tax, this person is exposed to income tax. Whatever the dividend he is getting, he has to pay an income tax on it. So what he would be getting is only what he has to consider as a part of his value creation process is only after the deduction for the tax. Okay. Under the terms of purchase of the ordinary share, the investor is purchasing 6,120 shares at 65.35 bucks. Okay. So 1st January. So let's try to put these things. 1st Jan 2011. The purchase price 65.35. So the purchase price of the share is 65.35 and number of shares is going to be 6,120. So probably the overall cost of purchase in this case is going to be something like this, around 4 lakhs or 400,000, 399,942 is the investment that has been done on 1st Jan 2011. No dividend is expected to be paid for 2 years. So dividends wise, 0 in 2012 and 0 in 2013. The first dividend is payable. The first dividend is payable on 1st Jan 2013. Yeah, because it's 1st Jan 2011. The whole of 2011 no dividend. The whole of 2012 no dividend. So the first dividend is expected, which is 4.6 per share. So the dividend 1st Jan 2013, whatever is the dividend, right? We are talking about a dividend of 4.6 per share. So there are 6,120 shares. So the dividend is going to be 28,152 bucks. That is going to be the dividend in each of the periods. Dividend will then be paid 6 months in perpetuity. So 4.6 per share, and it would be paid every 6 months in perpetuity. So probably the next, so this is on 1st Jan 2013. So probably 1st July 2013 again a dividend amount of the same 28,152 will be paid. The two dividend payments in any calendar year are expected to be the same, but the dividend payment is expected to increase at the end of each year at the rate of 4.4% per annum compounded. So for the next period, the dividend is going to increase. So for the 1st Jan 2014, the dividend is going to increase by 4.4%. So I am multiplying it by 1.044. So the dividend is going to be 29,390. But this would be the same for 1st Jan as well as 1st July. So like that it is going to go. The same thing again 1st Jan 2015. Again there could be an increase of 1.044, and the same way it is going to increase. Now all that I need to find out is the NPV of this entire process, right? I have to find out the NPV of this entire process. So in a notation form, if I have to write it, and of course the interest rate in this process we are talking about as 8.48%. So if I am trying to write it in the notation form, right? So probably can I write it like this? The initial dividend, let's say, is 28,152. Right, 28,152 is my initial dividend, and of course this dividend will be subjected to an income tax of 16.6%. So I'll subtract this 16.6%. So the first payment probably is 28,152 into 1 minus 16.6%. So it's somewhere around 23.478. 23.478.77. 23,478.77 is the first period dividend. So all I am saying is this is after 2 years. So the present value of this will become this into V squared. V is 1 by I. 1 by 1 plus I. So I can write this part as 23,478.77 V squared. Even the second dividend will become 23,478.77 V to the power of 2.5, because I am going to receive one more 23,000 at the end of 2.5 years. But the next year, the next calendar year, it is going to be 23,478.77 into 1.044, which is an increase of 4.4%. This I'll do as V cube. Then again the same 23,478.77 into 1.044 into v to the power of 3.5. This is how I can write it. 23,478.77 into 1.044 squared now, because for the next year one more 1.044 will get added up, and this becomes v power 4, v power 4.5. So if I look at it, probably I can pull out some commonality here. I can pull out 23,478.77 into if I pull out the v squared, if I look at it, 23.478.77, if I am taking out, this is nothing but v squared plus v power 2.5 plus 1.044 into v cube plus v power 3.5. This is what is coming up, plus 1.044 squared into v power 4 plus v power 4.5. This is what is coming out, right? In this entire expression, this is what is coming out overall. So probably the simplification again, if I take out 23,478.77 and let me also take out v squared plus v power 2.5 outside. So the first point is becoming 1. The second is becoming 1.044 into v, because v multiplied by v squared plus v power 2.5 is nothing but v cube plus v power 3.5. So it is coming out like 1.044 squared v squared plus so on up to infinite. So overall, now this I can apply an infinite geometric progression. Infinite series geometric progression for this part, a divided by 1 minus r. So 1 minus 1.044 into v. And v, we know it is 1 by 1 plus I. I is 8.48%. So it becomes 1 by 1 minus 1.044 divided by 1.0848. So we can find out the second, that one that is in the bracket, which can become 1.044 divided by 1.0848, taking it to 0.96, and I subtract 1 from 1 minus this 1.0, so the denominator part of it is 0.03, and I do a 1 by this. So this entire part is actually becoming 26.588. All right. And then we are also looking at this part, v squared plus v power 2.5. v. So if I want v squared, then it is nothing but 1 by 1.0848 squared. So this is the v squared, and v power 2.5 if I want the same thing, 1 by 1.0848 to the power 2.5. So this is v power 2.5. So I add those two things, v squared plus v power 2.5. This is giving me something like 1.665. So now I have everything to compute the cash inflows, the present value of all the cash inflows. If I start writing in a V notation, it becomes very easy for any kind of complicated cash flow scenarios also. They can be addressed quite comfortably. So all I can do now is the present value of cash inflows is nothing but 23,478 multiplied by V squared plus V 2.5 multiplied by that infinite series geometric progression. So which is giving me that the present value of all the cash inflows is going to be 1.039 million. Though I have spent only 400,000, my cash inflows are going to be 1.039 million. So the NPV, the outflows minus the inflows is 1,039,000 minus 399,000. Almost 639,000 positive is existing. So this investment is going to be a profitable investment. So in this case, all we have to see is in what way I can determine all my cash flows, inflows as well as outflows. In a typical equity investment, we have one single outflow, but a series of inflows in the form of dividend, and those series of cash flows also will be on a perpetual basis. So somewhere we have to try understanding the geometric progression based relationships in our equation, and try to use the sum of infinite terms of the geometric series kind of situation, and finally arrive at the computation of the present value of all the future cash inflows. And then we can use our outflow process to finally decide the total worth of the investment. So it's a step-by-step process. A little bit of practice will definitely give more insight into this process. But this is what we need to understand, that the dividend payment model may not be straightforward. If it is straightforward, every year this is the dividend, determining it is not so difficulty, but things can get twisted. The reality can become more and more complex. The dividend payments probably in a particular year they may not change, but across the years there might be a slight growth in the payment process. All these things we should be able to assess while determining whether your investment is profitable or not, and what is the return that you are getting on your investment. So that's the way to evaluate the equity investment and finding out the worth of those investments. All right. Now let's look at computing the NPV of the equity investments. Right? Equity investments, you invest something, and after that some dividends might be paid as cash flows by them, and probably you may sell off at a particular point. So the overall NPV is right from the time you have invested in it to the time you have sold it off, plus any intermediate dividends or any other cash flows that are coming out of the investment. So probably if we see here, there are various timelines that are involved in this numerical. Just read through this numerical a bit. On 1st Jan 2005, Mr. X has bought 2,802 shares in a particular company for a price of that much. And the shares did not pay any dividend for 3 years. But right from the 4th year, especially on 30th June 2008, which is in the 4th year, the dividend of 70 paisa per share has been paid. and on 31st December 2008, 2 rupees 10 paisa has been paid as a dividend. And the same trend continued until 2012 end, where the dividend that was paid, we are expecting that where the dividend that was paid was increasing by 12% per year on an average. Similarly, the December's one also is increasing at the rate of 12% per year. So on 1st Jan 2013, the shares were sold off. The market price was 184,000. So for this kind of an investment, how do I find out the net present value? Probably this is right from 2005 if I am looking at it. Right, probably if I have to tabulate the same, on 1st Jan 2005, there was an outflow of 106,476. Then there is nothing until 30th June 2008. So 30th June 2008, there was 0.7 rupees per share. So overall, the dividend that was paid, 0.7 rupees per share multiplied by 2,802 shares. So almost 1,961 rupees came in the form of dividend on 30th June, whereas on 31st December 2008, the same thing was 2.1 rupees per share. So 2.1 multiplied by 2802. So this was the dividend on 31st December. Each year until the end of 2012, the dividend payable every 30th June. So probably 30th June 2009. The dividend was, this number was increased by 12%. So this was the number. Similarly, on 31st December 2009, the case was, this number was increased by 12%. So this was the dividend. Similarly, on 30th June 2010, again this number got increased by 12%, and 31st December 2010, this number got increased by 12%. Similarly, 30th June 2011, we had this number increased by 12%, and 31st December 2011, this dividend got increased by 12%. And finally, 30th June 2012, this dividend got increased by 12%, and 31st December 2012, the dividend of this got increased by 12%. And finally, on 1st Jan 2013, this got sold off for 184,652. Now, if these are the various cash flows that are generated out of this investment, I want to know as on 1st Jan 2005. So, for this particular investment, assuming a 6% per annum interest rate, assuming an interest rate of 6% per annum, what is the NPV of this investment? So if I want to find out the NPV of this investment, logically speaking, yes, this is 3.5 years after the investment. This is 4, this is 4.5, this is 5, this is 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8, and even this is 8. So I could have very well found out the present values, right? The present values of all of them. So this divided by 1 plus the I in all our cases. Okay, I'll take what is that I, which was 6%. So in all these cash flows, I will discount this I by this. I will discount each of these cash flows by this 6% over these many years. So to the power of 3.5 for this one. So finally I will do the discounting of all of them like this. And finally my total NPV in this process is the summation of all these things. So which is around 44,428. So because it is positive, we say that this investment was a profitable investment, right? So using a spreadsheet, trying to find out this number is quite comfortable. Now the same logic if I have to do using a manual approach, using the notation space, how do I look at it? Alright. So my initial investment 106,476. Then after 3.5 years, I got, what was the amount? 1961.4. Right, 1961.4. This I discounted by 3.5 years, so I'll take V per 3.5. Then in the December, whatever I have got, 5,884.2. This I will discount it by V power 4. Or this I will have a discounting factor of V power 4 because this is at the end of 4 years. Then from the next period onwards, it is like 1.12 times 1961.4 into V power 4.5 plus 1.12 times 5884.2 into V power 5. So how long is it going on? This part 1.12 to the power 4. This is of 2009. So for 10 you would have had squared, for 11 you would have had cube, and for 12 you would have had to the power 4. 1.12 to the power 4 into 1961.4 into V power 7.5 plus 1.12 to the power 4 into 5884.2 into V power 8. And finally, after all these dividends, there is 184,652. What was the amount, whatever you are getting when you have sold it off? This I would discount by V power 8. Now, the important thing for me is how do I express the relationship? Take all these 0.5 elements, June payments. The way I could have looked at them is 1961.4, and if I take out V power 3.5 out, right, if I take out V power 3.5 out, it would have been 1 plus 1.12 V plus 1.12 squared V squared and so on, 1.12 per 4 V per 4. This would have been the number. Similarly, on the other side, if I take 5884.2 into V per 4, this is nothing but 1 plus 1.12 V plus 1.12 squared V squared, so on again 1.12 per 4 V per 4. So overall this is working out to, if I take out this part common, which is 1 plus 1.12 V plus 1.12 squared V squared, so on 1.12 per 4 V per 4. This if I take out, this I am left with is 1961.4 V per 3.5 plus 5884.2 into V per 4. So this would have been the simplification part of all the intermediate payments. Then I know that this is like a geometric progression, sum of 5 terms of a geometric progression. So the sum of 5 terms of the geometric progression, here V is nothing but 1 by 1 plus I. So this could very well be written as 1.012 by 1.06, which is greater than 1. So I'll use the formula sum to 5 terms, a into r power n minus 1 by r minus 1. So a is the first term 1 into r power n. R is 1.12 by 1.06. So probably it would be better that I compute the r, the common ratio, 1.12 divided by 1.06. Okay, that is my r. So based on that, I can multiply the sum of the first 5 terms, the sum of the 5 terms of this geometric progression, a into r power n, which is 5 minus 1 divided by r minus 1. So this is coming out as sum of the first 5 terms of this geometric progression, right? And this I have to multiply with 1961.4 v power 3.5. So this I am multiplying with 2 terms. So the first term is 1961.4 v power. So 1961.4 v power 3.5 is 1 plus 6%. That is the v 1 by 1 plus I, v power 3.5. So that is what is the 1961.4, and similarly 5884.2 divided by v power 4, multiplied by v power 4 or divided by 1 plus 6% to the power 4. So which is giving me 4660. So the summation of these two, because this is the summation of those two I require, the summation of these two is multiplied by 5.59, which is giving me this multiplied by 5.59 around 35,000. So the entire dividend related calculation, the present value is working out to somewhere around 35,051. And then the same thing I can do with the final selling price. The PV of the selling price is working out to 184,652 divided by 1 plus 6% to the power 8, because this is coming at the end of 8 years. So the PV of inflows, where the dividends as well as the selling price comes up, so the total present value of the inflows is somewhere around this, and I know that is the outflows. So that is where I can get the NPV. Even if I am doing through this mechanism, these are the inflows and this is the outflow. Overall my NPV again is coming out to 44,428. So I can use either the manual mechanism or I can use a spreadsheet mechanism to try to find out the present value, and at the end, when the NPV is positive, I can very well say that this investment is a profitable investment. Otherwise, it's not. And the same logic if I have to use for finding out the accumulated profit on the maturity date on 1st Jan 2013, when the security got sold off, what would have been the accumulated profit? Means all these intermediate dividends, if they got reinvested at this, assuming the 6% return every year, if they are reinvested, it would have fetched what amount as the profit. It is nothing but whatever the NPV we got today, you multiply that, whatever the NPV you got, you multiply it at that at that expected rate of interest itself for the entire 8 years. So this multiplied by 1.06 to the power 8 is an indication of the accumulated profit on the expiry date. On 1st Jan 2013, this investment is giving an accumulated profit of around 70,812 rupees. So once we have the NPV in place, that NPV compounded at the rate of expected rate of return on the investment is what will be giving you the accumulated profit at the end of at the selling point, right? So that is how even the dividends have different kinds of patterns for different kinds of period. We should be able to use the basic mathematical formulas to really try to find out the NPV of the entire equity investment. All right.